Hello, myself Dr. Pratik Jain. I hold MC, MTech and PhD in computer science. My area of expertise is cloud computing and IoT. So I'm having an experience of around 11 years in different verticals. So in today's video, we will discuss about the basics of the computer fundamentals. So we are into the programming in C. So just let's start with the first video. So here are the learning objectives for this video. So in this video, you will be able to learn about the introduction to computer fundamentals. So we know that the computer is any device that can perform certain tasks. So they are quite faster than the humans, and if I simply try to define it, so simply the meaning of computer is it has come from the one Latin word that is called as the compute. That simply meaning is to calculate. Now it is a device, so that basically operates the various data and it has the various functions. If we'll see the few functions, so first functions we can see is inputting. That means it is takes out some input from the user through the help of the input devices. So that means process of entering data and instructions into a computer system. That is we call as the inputting. So input is being given up by the user through the help of various input devices. So that device can be the keyboard, that device can be your mouse also. Then second function of the computer is saving the data and the instructions. So whenever we give any input to the computer, so it basically translates into the machine level understanding form. Then over here, so obviously it requires some memory space to store some instructions. So until those instructions are basically executed, so until then it's requires some storage mechanisms to store those sort of processes over there. Therefore, second point we have the it is used for the storing. Then third one is processing. So whatever means work we want to perform. So whether we want to perform the arithmetic operations or we want to perform the logical operations. So that is basically done it's by its processing unit. So this unit consisting of various components. So one component is the arithmetical logical unit. So that unit is quite responsible for performing the arithmetic as well as the logical operations. Now next one if you'll see, so next functions we do have is the, so fourth one we have the outputting and then finally we have the controlling. So that means, so whenever we want to perform certain tasks, so we also require some outputs to be displayed. So the computers, what it will do, it will take the inputs from user and it will process it by the various components. Then after that, it will again translate those sort of results into the human readable form. And those sort of outputs will be displayed on the output screen. So output devices like we can use upon the monitor. So on the monitors, users can see the respective outputs. Then next one we have the controlling. So in case of computers, we do have one component which is called as a control unit. So that unit will be responsible for directing the manner and the sequence in which the various operations which will be performed. So those operations we already discussed upon like inputting, like outputting, like processing and the storing. The internal architecture of the computers, so they differ from system to system, but usually in every computers we do have some standard sort of models. Then the above 5 functions that will be also quite common to all the computers. So here is we have the image of what exactly is the organization in the basic computer. So herein you can see that we have the various units, like we have firstly the input unit, then we have the output unit, then we have the CPU. So under the CPU, we do have the two specific components. So one is the arithmetic logical unit and next one we have the control unit. Beyond that, we do also require the storage unit. So storage unit that will be consisting of the two memories. So one is the primary storage and then secondary storage. Now if we start from the input unit. So input unit, its simply meaning is the various sort of programs and data that will be given up by the user. Then what will happen is once input will be given upon, so that will be stored on the some random memory storage. Then from that location it will go to the CPU. So over at the CPU, so with the help of its components like ALU, so ALU will perform the operations. So like if suppose arithmetic operations are required, it will be performed, then it will be means revert back, it will be stored somewhere in the memory, and finally it will be displayed in the output unit. So output unit, so typically we use is the monitor over here. So here you can see we have the lines shown in the dash formats and other one in the dark formats. So dark one basically signifies the flow of the instructions as well as the data. While the dash one, you can say the dash lines, so it basically tells us that how the control unit is managing the all the devices. So you can see control unit is giving directions to the ALU, it is handling the storage unit also, and further it is also handling the input as well as the output unit. So this is the way that how basically the computer performs. So with the help of all these basic units. Now when we talk about CPU, so we know that it is basically the brain of the computer. So all sort of processing is being conducted inside the CPU itself. Then it performs all types of data processing operations. Then it also stores the data, intermediate results as well as the instruction programs. Then it also controls the operations of all parts of the computers. So thereon, in simple terms, so all sort of handling and all sort of computations that is carried out by the CPU unit. Now if we'll see about the input unit. So input unit, we know that it accepts or the reads the instructions and data from the outside world, and that word basically we call them as the input units or the users. So it converts these instructions and data in the computer acceptable form. So those inputs will be converted into the binary format, so which is understandable by the computer. Then the same will be supplied to the various components, like it is supplied to the CPU, and over there the ALU will perform certain tasks. So depending on the what user has asked for. Then second one, if we'll say output unit, so it accepts the results that is produced by the computer and which are basically available in the coded format. So once it will be available, so there that means the task has been completed and user will be able to view the respective output. Then it converts these coded results to the human acceptable forms. Then it supplies the converted results to the outside world. Now next one, if we'll see storage unit. So storage unit means it is required for holding some amount of instructions and data. Now data and instructions that is required for the processing, then it is received from the input devices. Then intermediate results of the processing is being also stored up in the storage device. Then results for the output before they are released to an output device. So there also it is being stored into the storage unit. So in simple terms, while the input is given by the user and until the time the results are released, so in between those sort of instructions and data will be stored upon in this respective storage unit. So over there it will be using some part of primary storage and somehow it will be using upon the secondary storage. Then if we'll say the classifications of storage unit, so that is available in two forms. So one is the primary and second one is the secondary storage. So when we talk about for the primary storage, so primary it is also known as the main memory, or we call it as a RAM also. So this is basically required to hold a piece of program instructions as well as the various data. Then intermediate results of processing and the recently produced results of these jobs on which the computer is currently working upon. So all those instructions and data, so on which the computer is currently working upon, so that will basically be stored over in the primary storage. So it can hold the information only while the computer system is basically on. That means it's sort of the volatile memory. So once the system will be turned off, the entire content, entire data will be lost upon. So on the right hand side, you can see the few examples. So we have the view input devices, like we have the keyboard and the mouse. So it can be any categories of keyboard and mouse. Then we have the storage device as floppy disk. Then we have the output devices. So one is the traditional printer and second one we have the monitors. Now next one, if we will proceed with that. So next one we have the arithmetic logical unit. So as the name implies, so it is quite responsible for performing the certain tasks. So those tasks can be your arithmetic operations as well as the logical operations. So the function of this section is to perform arithmetic operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication and division, and all the complex sort of operations are done by making the repetitive use of the above operations. So therefore, in short, if you'll see, so this sort of component is responsible for performing the all sort of arithmetic operations as well as the logical operations. Then this is also has one logic section. So the function of this section is to perform logical operations such as the comparing, selecting, matching and the merging of data. So here on the ALU consisting of totally two sections. So one is arithmetic for the arithmetic operations and second one we have the logic sections that basically is required for the logical operations. Then we have secondary storage. So this is also called as the auxiliary storage. So it's a supplementary storage. So over here we can store the program instructions, data and information of those jobs on which computer system is currently not working, but it might be needing it for the further processing. That means it is secondary storage. So you can say the example of the hard disk also. So that means we will be storing some sort of data over there for a permanent period of time until not deleted or not getting accidentally deleted. So thereon the computer might require those instructions later on once it will be processed. Then control unit, so it does not perform any actual processing, but it is quite responsible for giving the instructions to the all sort of inputs. So it basically works like a sort of managerial activities. So all the devices, whether it is input, output or storage device, that is quite handled by the control unit. So it manages and coordinates the entire computer system and it obtains instructions from the program stored in the main memory. So functions of the control unit, so we can see over here. So it is not means not been processed or stored data. So that means it will not be responsible for processing any data and for the storing any data. So its responsibility is to control the transfer of data and the instructions among other units of a computer. Then it helps in managing and coordinating all the units of a computer, and it basically obtains instructions from the memory, interprets them and directs the operation of the computer. So herein we saw the various functions of the control unit. So we know now control unit, it's not basically performing any sort of processing capabilities, but rather it basically guides and it basically helps in the coordinating the all the devices, because all the devices needs to communicate with each other in order to take certain input or for displaying certain output. So if we do not have the output unit, so how we will be able to view the result? So thereon the coordinations will be controlled by the control unit. So in this video, we discuss about the basics of the computer fundamentals. So we learned about the various concepts with respect to the various functionalities of a computer and the other sort of various aspects. So thank you so much for watching this video.